And what do you got in there that's new this week?
Well, here's what we wrote about last week, which is something to be thinking about. So the round 3, the Palisades Mall in Clarkstown should be heading to court, this time the appeals court, in early January. And we did an analysis of what the appeals looks like and what the Palisades Center, which is owned by Eclecco Nuco, the actual name of the company. And in their appeals brief, what they try to, what they're going to argue is that, first of all, the suit, which was thrown out for being time-barred or too late for the court, should not have applied, that there should have been no statutes of limitations, because they're arguing that they are challenging, that when a landowner challenges the validity of a restrictive covenant, that there should be no statute of limitations on that. So that's one thing that they're saying. The more shocking thing that was said over and over in the brief, and I'm going to quote this so that it's not just in my words, but over and over in the brief it says, between 2014 and 2016, the town sought to force the mall developer to pay millions of dollars and make other material concessions as a condition to release the restrictive covenant. So, what that means in lay terms is, here, I guess the mall has, they just want the freedom to build out that remaining space. Right now, the way it stands, it really depends on what the voters of Clarkstown have to say about that. But the supervisor and I guess the town board have held up any possibility of, till now, of putting up a referendum on this issue. I know certainly in and around the election, they did not want to do that. But I'm going to make a bold, not prediction exactly, but I'm going to wonder out loud whether or not, and we will see, we're going to see some kind of a shift in thinking on this between now and early January, and whether, in fact, the town of Clarkstown will hold a referendum on this issue, and here's why. If a referendum is held, then it's essentially most of what the Palisades Center is arguing becomes moot, and especially if a referendum is held and the voters decide to say, okay, Palisades Mall, go ahead, fill out that 240,000 square feet on the 4th floor, then the Palisades Center really doesn't have a problem anymore with Clarkstown. So I'm saying we'll of course be out ahead on this, but there is a meeting coming up, and there continues to be behind the scenes, which is no surprise, negotiations, and I don't know what Clarkstown is going to walk away with when all is said and done, because I think that given the retail environment, which we've been talking about for months now, the Palisades Center is likely to file a tax appeal in 2020. So it's all very complicated, but I do think that we're going to have more clarity on this issue by early 2020 as to whether the mall prevails and the restrictive covenant goes away altogether, or whether Clarkstown finally makes a move, puts up a referendum, and the suit in essence becomes moot. So I think that this is coming to a head, which is not small news. What do you guys think?
No, it will be in the town's best interest to do. I mean, the economic climate from back in the time when this was first became an issue until now has totally changed. The retail climate, anyway, it has completely changed. I mean, nobody ever thought the Palisades Center Mall would be struggling, or I'm not saying that they're fighting for survival, but things are changing. They're changing rapidly. Look at the Christmas sales and all the stuff today, Cyber Monday, that's being purchased on the web, which wasn't years ago. So they got to do something to keep it running.
Well, Thanksgiving broke record sales with $4.2 billion in online sales, and then Black Friday. Consumers spent, check out this number, I mean, obviously this is national, but $7.4 billion online yesterday with, via computers, tablets, and smartphones. Those figures were up $1.2 billion from a year ago.
And 20 years ago, all that money would have been spent, or most of it anyway, on enterprises like the Palisades Center Mall.
And, I think it's more like even, let's say, 5 years ago, the brick and mortars could still rely on elbow-to-elbow, traffic in their stores. So this is such a fast and recent phenomenon, this kind of adaptation to online shopping, that, I think it's leaving the retailers with their, to use their pants around their ankles. I think, how can they be that agile and that flexible to respond to something that's happening, so quickly, so dramatically, so quickly? So they can't, is the answer. They can't. So, it's, there was a story, there's a phenomenon that I read about recently, about how, this is more of a New York City thing, but how the retailers like Nordstrom and Macy's and others, not Macy's, Bloomingdale's, are attempting to put, kiosks inside of fancy hotels in New York City, so that they can try to catch the tourist right there at the hotel lobby, rather than have to worry about trying to get people into the stores. And we don't have those sort of hotels here in Rockland County for an arrangement like that. I don't think. But it shows you that I think that retailers they're gasping for ways to capture people, human traffickers. Now, people who are, to catch people who are, right there in the flesh.
Hey, before we let you go, as long as you mentioned hotels, what do you think about the plethora of hotels that are just cropping up all over this county, especially in the Orangetown area? It's just that I can't get over. Where do they figure they're going to get there? They obviously believe they're going to get their clientele. So
I think that the hotel that's coming up in Orangeburg or Orangetown, the Hilton Garden, I think it is. It's another one of these like residence inns. I think what's notable about all of the hotel population that keeps proliferating here in this county is that it's all more of the same. It's the same kind of hotel. It's the same level of hotel, the same service. In other words, we don't have high-end hotels. We don't have boutique hotels, unless you count the Time Hotel. And
there's also the Hilton is kind of on the high end.
Not so much. It's okay. And the one in Suffern is decent. But we don't have a really high. We don't have a 5-star hotel in this county, and we also don't have boutique hotels. So I think the one in Orangetown is thinking that the IRG, the data center, corporate parks, that's where they're going to draw. And it's not a huge hotel either. So, I don't know. I guess it's corporate business is what the hope for, clientele is. But it really is. I think if you really take a look at all the hotels, it more or less is kind of a monoculture of hotels, as opposed to a place that might have more of a diversification of hotels. People want boutique hotels. They want that experience. I was recently out in Wichita, which is a small city it's not that much bigger, really, than Rockland. And I noticed, what a huge range of hotels one could find, even in a small city like that. I think Rockland would do well to have a couple of good boutique hotels, especially, in the northern and western parts of the county, where people come up for the nature and the beauty. Actually, you know what? I take it back. One other exception is Valley Rock Inn. I always forget that's still in Rockland. But that's an example of where we have something different to offer in the hospitality sector in terms of a hotel experience. I think Rockland...
But with all the ones that are being built, I got to be quick because we have to get going here, but what about the time? I mean, that was supposed to be one of the biggest things happening to Rockland in terms of...
So that's still plugging along. They're doing okay. They were purchased. They're doing okay for the moment. They still have BB's Grill. So the Time Hotel, Valley Rock Inn, those kind of properties, that's a different driver for tourism. These hotels are strictly people here on business for a night or 2 nights, corporate parks, catering to corporations. That's largely what they're targeted for. We'll see if they all thrive. But I guess those big corporations, know their business. They know how to analyze the statistics, and so there must be enough, people doing business. I would say look out this week. We're going to be doing an interesting story about some new development coming on the TOD in Nanuet. So there's a little teaser for what's coming down the pike this week.
Wait, the what in Nanuet?
Where they've rezoned and they're planning on having all of that housing and by the train station.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, transit-oriented development. There's some...
Like what they're doing in Pearl River.
No, not Pearl River, in Nanuet.
That's like what they're doing in Pearl River.
Yeah, like what they want to do in Pearl River.
Right, correct.
Yeah, but like what they have, passed the laws to do in Clarkstown, and
right.
Yeah, we have some good intel on that, and we'll be publishing that very shortly.
And all you have to do is go to on your device.
RC Biz Journal.
RC Biz, B-I-Z Journal, RC Biz Journal, and it's right there for you.
That's right. Everybody stay dry, stay
thanks,
safe.
Tina.